This is Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerantz. We're in Irvine, California today at the National Faith Leaders Conference, and we are joined by Farrah. She is the Executive Director of the Newport, Mesa, Irvine Interfaith Council, whose focus is what?
It's basically bringing together faith communities to get to know one another, to work on issues that are local to us, and really open our hearts and minds to one another.
I want to talk about one faith community. It's your community, if I may, and it's the Islamic community. Mm-hmm. And I think it's fair to say that so many Americans really don't have a true grasp of the Islamic faith. Not a lot of Muslims live in America, although it's growing. It's growing. What do you hope to teach Americans about Islam?
Basically, it's a faith like any other faith. We have our doctrines, we have our way of life, and really the core beliefs are no different from any other faith. It's making sure that we're helping those that are in need, taking care of our neighbors, being good to one another. So I think if we all focused on the core of each of our faiths, we would realize that we're all one and the same.
And I'm sure that you receive a lot of support within the faith communities, because the faith communities are about, at least in 2015, accepting and realizing the power of faith regardless of a specific denomination. But you know as well as I that there's fear, there's misunderstanding about Islam. And so explain how your work with faith communities helps not just members of the Muslim faith, but all faiths.
I think for me, myself, it's being out there, being open to people. When they see me, they don't, first of all, think that I'm Muslim, because I'm not wearing the traditional headscarf and everything. But I make myself open to everyone. They'll come up and say, "Oh, do you work with the Buddhists?" "Yeah, I work with the Buddhist." "I know so-and-so, you should come in and have lunch with us." And then finally when they learn about me, they're like, "Oh, you're not what I thought you were." And it's like, okay, so it's a living example of how to work within different faith communities and how to get people to interact with one another and understand that once you get to know someone, you probably will end up liking them.
We're all people.
Yeah.
This last month has been interesting, last few months, in terms of America's relationship with members of the Islamic faith.
Oh, yeah.
On the one hand, you had that charming young boy from Texas, Ahmed, who made a clock that some thought looked like a bomb. I don't know. What do I know? I'm not a scientist. But we know Barack Obama didn't think it looked like a bomb. We know that Mark Zuckerberg didn't think it looked like a bomb, or folks from MIT and Stanford. And in a lot of ways, this young boy became kind of America's darling.
Right.
How did that make you feel?
When I first heard about the story, I was a little upset. But then when I saw the responses, I really felt good. That, there might be a few people that are just not open to understanding about other people, but there are many, many more that are. And so America's on the right path. We've got the people out there. We just need to be a little bit louder than the ones that are negative.
On the flip side, though, when we look back at 2015, we will look back at the refugee crisis. The refugee crisis in Syria, in Iraq, and other places in North Africa and the Middle East. We will also look at how America seems to be a little schizophrenic about what to do in terms of being part of the global community and accepting refugees, specifically from Syria. How has that played in your mind as a Muslim, but also just as part of the interfaith community, that we do seem not really know how to get a handle?
Right. Well, if you look back into history, when people came from Europe to America, they were pretty much refugees. They were people that were trying to leave a land that they were not happy with to find something new. And so when we see people that are troubled, they're not leaving on their own accord. It's not like, oh, I'm going to get up and move to America.
They're not economic refugees, as one says.
No, they're not. They're actually being killed if they stay.
Right.
They have no choice but to move.
In a lot of ways, this reminds me, you may know about the Voyage of the Damned, which was the ship that sailed from Germany in 1939 with German Jews looking to escape. It was right before Hitler invaded Poland. 900 German Jews, and America took 0. Cuba took 20. And yet, I do understand that we are looking to take refugees from Syria,
Oh, yeah.
but a paltry sum.
Exactly.
I don't mean to take a position, but just look at the numbers. You know, Germany's taking hundreds of thousands,
Right.
and I think we're signed up for 10,000. Is that right?
10,000 right now. Might bump it up a little more.
Right. And so I guess I want to get your sense about that as an interfaith leader.
I mean, again, it's people not understanding what's going on globally, and maybe using some information that they have right now that is not the truth, and letting that build up as fear. And I think some of our politicians use that to their own benefit to incite this fear. If you look at us right now, how are we economically? We're not that great. How are we education-wise? We're not that great. We're not a thriving community where we're accepting everyone and we're happy. There's a lot of stress here in America. And that feeds into
it's
the
interesting.
whole idea of, oh, we're going to take on more people to
other.
take care of.
But here's what's interesting. Yeah, one could say we're not that great, but we kind of are. The flip side, compared
we
to,
are. Yes.
think about it, compared to Syria
Yes,
and Iraq,
yes.
and it's, so one could argue, you know, shouldn't we kind of recognize that, well, it's not perfect, of course. America is still a democracy in progress.
Right.
That we're doing all right, and you know, isn't that what we're about in America? You know, what does it say on the Statue of Liberty? Couldn't one argue that?
Yeah. Well, again, I'll have to go to our leaders. Are they doing their job right? You know what? The state that we're in right now, is it because that they're out there, people like Ben Carson, people like Donald Trump, who are stirring up fear? Is that okay? Is it okay for individuals to just listen to them and say, oh yeah, this is right. They're saying the right thing, this is how I should be feeling?
So how do you, as a woman of civility, if I may say, respond when you hear statements that you deem to be offensive from presidential candidates or otherwise?
Well, for the first part, for Ben Carson, there's a petition out there asking him to step down. Because if he's saying it to one community of people right now, who knows what he'll say when he's president? Is this a stable person that we can have leading an entire nation, especially a nation that is so diverse here in America? I don't think so.
What was
So
your,
we have to step up, and we do have to say something back to people that are inciting fear and say, you know what? Enough is enough.
So do you feel as if the faith communities are unifying behind that?
I believe they are. I believe they are.
And what about the statements, for example, of Donald Trump, who indicated that if we did accept refugees from Syria, that if he should become president, he would want them returned?
Where's the compassion? I mean, I think Americans are one of the most compassionate people that I've met here. We are very compassionate. But if this is the type of rhetoric that's being spewed out there, this is not okay.
What do you say to someone who is afraid of a woman in hijab? What do you say to them?
Go up to her and talk to her. Say hi. I think you'll be very surprised. It doesn't take that much. You don't have to go out of your way or do anything. Just stop and say hi.
And does that work?
Majority of the time it will. I can't say everyone's different.
Of course.
You
And
might
that's-
get a mom that's really upset and not want to talk to you, but
in a lot of ways, that's really the answer. I mean,
Right.
we're all people in the end.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what your creed is.
Exactly.
You know, you could be an angry Muslim, an angry Catholic, an angry
Exactly.
Jew. You know, you could
Yeah.
be having a bad day, so you don't want
Right.
anyone talking to you.
right.
I want to thank you for what you're doing for this region, and I want to thank you for joining us on our program. Her
Thank
name
you.
is Farrah Khan. She is the executive director of the Newport, Mesa, Irvine Interfaith Council. My name is Brad Palmer. We are in Irvine, California at the National Faith Leaders Conference, and this is Charter Local Edition.